Welcome to the vast catacombs deep below Jeff's Woodwind Shop in Baltimore. This is where I do a lot of the dirty stuff, way down deep where I can't track stuff all over the house. But I wanted to show you a couple of the things down here I'm going to be using. This is my rolling mill. Since I've gotten interested in metalworking, I decided, especially with this project coming up, I would have to get myself a rolling mill to do a lot of the work. So this is a Durston Agile C130, very, very ruggedly built, big, huge hunk of cast iron. Ironically, this is the second one I got. The first one had one of these feet where the bolt goes through broken off. So you can imagine how hard they had to drop it to do that. But basically, those are the hardened steel rollers that I'm going to be running the silver through to get things to the proper thickness. And then I'll do some creative solutions with forging with a hammer. I've got my makeshift work hardened railroad anvil over here that I'll be pounding the silver on. I've got some brass blocks that I will be putting specific radiuses and curves on, and hopefully things will turn out well. So until next time. And now we've stepped into one of the deeper antechambers of the catacombs underneath Jeff's Woodwind Shop, and here I have to cut a little bit of silver. So a couple of things about cutting silver. What I'm cutting right now, I have to square up the end on this so I can measure. I want an accurate inch, and I'm going to use this as a test run in the rolling mill to see exactly how much length I'm going to get out of an inch when I get down to thickness, so I know exactly what I'm dealing with, so I can better approximate what I need my rough stock to be. So a couple of things about sawing. Make sure you have some of this stuff. Most of the jewelry companies have it. It is a lubricant for saws and burrs and stuff like that, and it just makes things cut a lot better. Another thing about cutting silver is a lot of people have an allergy to silver. So if you're working with silver, this allergy could be very mild, but you don't want to touch your eyes. You want to make sure, more than anything, any other metal that you're working with, unless it's lead, of course, nobody wants to work with lead, that you are not touching your eyes after you've been working with silver. People with moderate to severe allergies to silver can develop blindness, and anybody gets silver dust in their eyes can get really bad irritation. So it's something you want to be careful of when you're working with silver. The other thing with this block that I'm working with, if you could see it from the top, there are all these little ugly saw marks all over the place. And when you're working with a jeweler's saw, you need that to support the blade. You just run it into the wood and let it support the blade, and you have a lot fewer broken blades as a result. I do a lot of work with blades that are down into the 6/0, 7/0, 8/0 range, which is pretty darn thin, and they will break if you look at them funny. So any extra support is helpful. So there, a nice clean cut. I'll save that piece for something else, I don't know what. And now I will go and measure an inch and cut an inch off of this fine piece of sterling silver. Okay, a little description of what I have in my fire area here. Anytime we're working with metal a lot like this, we're going to have to do a lot of annealing so we don't get stress fractures in the metal itself, and it helps it to move easier and all that good stuff. So obviously you need a heat source, and I've got my acetylene torch here. I have my protected fire area here, some fire bricks and some pumice stones and all that good stuff. I have a pickle pot, and this is to clean off any oxidation, fire scale, what have you, from the piece that you've heated up to anneal. Oh, a Sharpie. That's what these lines are. You heat it until the lines disappear, poof, it's annealed. You don't have to worry about looking for color and shutting off the lights and stuff like that. The temperature that the Sharpie burns off is the temperature that the metal will be annealed. So anyway, after it's annealed, you drop it in the pickle pot, which is pool chemicals. A couple of tablespoons of that in the pot with some distilled water, and you're good to go. It's a lot cheaper than the commercial pickle solution, and it's pretty much the same thing. Oh, on my pickle pot, I have a timer, because I have left the thing on and boiled it dry more times than I like to think about. So now I've got a Christmas light timer on there, so I set it to 4 hours, and it'll turn off whether I'm here or not, hopefully. So after the pickle pot, after it's cooled down, you just dunk it in there and swish it around a little bit. You have to use some copper tongs. If you don't use copper tongs, it will contaminate your pickle and it'll basically plate stuff onto your silver, and you don't want that if you're doing fine work. So you retrieve your article with the copper tongs, dunk it in your neutralizer. This is just baking soda and distilled water. Then you slosh it around in that a little bit, move it into the dish that I haven't filled up yet, which is just clean rinse water, and then blow dry it off with compressed air, and you're good to go for the next round. One other thing, in this jar here, which is a jam jar from Atwater's, a local Baltimore bakery and cafe. If you're in the area and you see an Atwater's, it's worth stopping. But anyway, that is a solution of denatured alcohol and boric acid, and I can mix this up and paint that. This is a little bit thin, or I need to mix it more. Basically, you paint this on the piece that you're going to hit under the flame, and it offers additional protection to the surface finish. So if you're working with something that's been polished already or is near a stage of completion and has very fine detail in it or engraving, you want to use something like that to protect all that detail, and then that will either burn off or come off when you drop it in the pickle. So that's it for the fire area, and more to come. Okay, back in the fire area, we're going to do some one-handed annealing here. We'll see how it goes. My torch here, I like it because I have one of those spring clip broom holders, which works very well for holding the torch and keeping it from falling on the floor and setting things on fire. So we'll see how well we can do this with one hand. Generally for annealing, you want a soft flame. You don't want a hissing flame. Propane would be a better option than acetylene if I had my choice, but acetylene is what I have, so that's what I'm doing. And I'm keeping the flame towards the bottom side of the piece, so the heat can go around and up, and I'm not just heating the surface. And you can see the Sharpie has now disappeared. I'll kind of roll that around. It probably shouldn't be doing, but I only have one hand, so that's what I'm doing. I'm going a little bit extra here just in case, just so I get all the way through the thickness of it. Into the pickle. into the neutralizer and clean water bath. And you can see with the pickle, it still looks like silver. It cleaned all of the stuff off. So now I will go blow dry it so I'm not getting water on my rolling mill, and we will start seeing how far this 1-inch piece of silver will stretch. Okay, we're back with our annealed piece of silver. Try to get this to focus on here. Anyway, you can kind of see I flattened two sides of it, just manually with a hammer, to make it go through the mill easier. Now, the important thing when you're rolling stuff, if it's going through this way, it's going to lengthen that way. I would only make this wider if I ran it through that way. Right now this is measuring about 0.260 inches where I flattened it out on the wide side, and on the flattened side we're looking at 228. And we're going to take that down to about 0.125. And it's going to take a little while because we can only do 2 or 3 rolls. Sometimes I do more. I'm going to do more. And then you have to anneal again. So I have to adjust this to see if it fits okay, and that's just starting to grab there. Okay. One pass, give it a little turn. So, with that little amount of rolling, we brought it from, what did I say it was, like 208. It's now, well, it's normalized out and it's right about 200. So we went down about 0.8 thousandths of an inch. But the length, we were at 1 inch right on, and now we're at 1 inch, almost 40 thousandths it lengthened. So it only squashed down 8 to 10 thousandths in thickness, but it lengthened 40. So that is the power of the rolling mill. Now off to anneal some more.